Hi everybody, it's Steph Mischuk with Killer Sites, webmentor.org, and all the other sites. In this quick little video blog, I want to talk about web certification. More specifically, how important is certification in terms of getting a web development or web design job? You see it out there, it's pretty common nowadays where a lot of web training sites, my competitors, have certifications. You finish the course and you get a nice certificate, you get certified. And the reason you have this now is because there's a demand for certification from the people taking the courses, not from the employers. So let me qualify that. So I've been developing websites since 1994, and I've been hiring web designers and web developers since the 90s. I've worked on projects from small mom and pop type of websites all the way up to web apps for publicly traded companies, major banks, cell companies, pharmaceutical, and everything in between. And in that time, I have never, ever been asked if I was certified by a major institution, let alone some website that's been up for a few years, some service that teaches web design, programming, and so on. Certification in the web sphere is almost next to useless in terms of getting a job. Now, for a system that we have, Studio Web, which is used by schools, we provide a proof of passing a certification for the school to prove that the students actually have done the material properly. But that's about it. That's not for getting a job. So I can guarantee you that if you're looking to get a certificate because you feel that you're going to walk in and show an employer a certificate and they're going to care, they're not going to give a damn. They're not going to care. What they're going to care about is your track record. So you got to be able to show what you've done. And of course, that's a catch-22. Before you can get the job, you got to show that you've done jobs. Well, I'll give you the short version how to do that. When you have a certain amount of skills, build your first site. You have to have a site for yourself. So build your first site, right, to show your skills. And then from there, you find a friend or a friend's friend or a relative who needs a site for their small business or business they're thinking about building, whatever, build their site for free. And the process of doing this with every new site that you start and complete is going to give you the demo reel, if you will, to borrow from the film industry. It's going to give you that demo. It's going to be able to show to prospective people who would hire you, whether as a contractor or as a full-time position. They're going to look at that. They're going to look at your ability to produce product, to produce, in this case, websites and web apps. So I see that a bit. I get people emailing me, calling me, how about certification? Again, the whole certification business, and a lot of times when people offer them, is simply because the people looking to get the training wrongly assume that certification is going to get them the job. It won't. It won't. The only time where some sort of credential in that regard plays a role in the development world, in the web world, is if you're going to try to get a job working for a huge organization like a Google or an Apple or Price Waterhouse or something like that, massive organization, but they're not going to be looking for a certificate from XYZ's website online. What they're going to be looking for is comp sci degrees. They're going to be looking for computer engineering degrees. They're going to be looking for people who have degrees from these big accredited universities. But that's the exception. And even in that situation, I've gotten jobs and work in the past with no comp sci degree, and I just showed them my portfolio, and they said, "We don't care what your degree is. You know how to code," and that was all that mattered. So that's my advice to you. Don't be so concerned about the certification. be much more concerned about building up a track record, which is the portfolio site. And the portfolio sites. And how do you do it? You do your own. You do freebies for friends and family. And slowly, 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 with every new site that you complete or web app, your credentials will increase and your price will increase. So you're going to have to start off being a little bit cheaper. Well, free is pretty cheap. And then when you start charging, you're going to start being able to charge a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. I'm not giving you a dollar amount because it depends on where you live in the world, right? Because the cost of living in Thailand, for instance, is much less than it is in San Francisco or where I am in Montreal. So as such, you can work for much less per hour locally and live a great middle-class lifestyle or much higher, depending on how good you get. And over time, as you become more skilled, you will become much more productive. So I'll use round numbers. I'm just pulling numbers out of the air. So let's say you start off at $20 an hour. Once you start doing, you've done your freebie sites and you've gained some skill. You're worth $20 an hour at that point. That's what you're worth because you work at a certain speed and there's a level of sophistication in the work that you do. But let's say 4 or 5 sites later or apps later, then you can, you bump it up slowly, 22, 25, 30 an hour. Now, the $30 an hour guy is probably much more productive than the 20. That's why he's worth 30, because you get a lot more done in less time, and the results of your work is far better. Same thing with the 40, 50, $100 an hour guy, and so on. So it is your per hour rate has a lot to do with how productive you are, and that's the great thing about coding and web development. It's a true meritocracy, meaning your pay is really dictated by how skilled you are, rather than how many years experience, who you know, this kind of thing. Now, experience plays a major role, because it suggests a certain level of skill. But like in other professions where you can have people with tons of experience, but they're not really that good. Whereas with the web and with development in general, you can see how good they are based on the apps they produce and how viable those apps are. When I mean viable apps, I mean that the code is clean, it's modular, it's very functional. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Ciao.